By integration of the social forces, I mean those forces which are centrifugal. The state has to act in a centripetal manner. In other words, there are legitimate interests, actions, goals, plans of individuals, companies, organizations, and so forth, which tend to fracture society. People who want to sell a product want to sell it as expensive as possible. People who want to buy a product will want to buy it as cheaper as possible. If a major investment has to be made, for example, in the United States, the people of California want it to be in California, the people of Iowa want it to be in Iowa. These are legitimate conflicting interests which act as a centrifugal force. The function of the state is to integrate all these social forces in a centripetal manner so that it will be cohesive, united, togetherness, so that it will be joint and it will merge in, always geared on one common golden rule. The common good is always more important than private or individual greed or individual interest. So, economic activities under a state integrating social forces has to be absolutely socially productive. If an economic activity is against the social, the common good, it has to be stopped. If people would rather manufacture drugs instead of manufacturing bread, naturally it's the state that will have to stop them so that those people who are generating damage will not be able to have their day. The second inalienable function of the state is to ensure public citizen awareness. The people need to understand what is happening inside and outside of their country. They must understand the risks involved. They must understand what the perils the nation is facing. They must learn to identify foe and friend and not to mistaken one for the other. And they must be ready to fight for the freedoms they have and to keep them and ensure that they have them for the future and for the future of their children. They must understand that for every citizen right, there is a citizen responsibility. This means defending the national interest. Just as integration of the social forces is geared on the common good, ensuring public citizen awareness is geared on the national interest. And thirdly, when a government knows how to promote the common good within its frontiers and generate awareness on the national interest regarding threats and opportunities outside of its frontiers, then it has everything necessary to prepare a strategic plan for that country for 5, 10, 20, maybe 50 years into the future. And what does it have to do? That plan has to be highly dynamic, it has to be very flexible, it has to have good action plans. That is what government is all about, and the state must govern effectively. These consistent plans require leadership, which means that it requires the best people being in government, not the worst. Again, the golden rule is to ensure that the common good must always prevail over individual interests. So, all of this that I'm describing, which are the functions of a sovereign nation state, can only be achieved if the best people rise to the top echelons of the state to govern your country and my country, and not the worst people. The worst people should be put in their place, which in many cases means putting them in jail. However, with the money system governing the so-called democratic system, the worst people always seem to have the day. You see, the best people never rise riding on waves of money. Quite the contrary, it's the worst people who do that. So we must break the backbone of the arbitrary money power. We have to break the political party monopoly. We have to strike down the fact that small minorities wield indiscriminate power against the vast majority of us. In other words, of we the people. It's a perverse triangle, you see, because we have bad people in government, country after country, but we also have bad people in the controlled opposition. And the third part of this whole thing is that the media, the mainstream media, will only allow those bad people in government and those bad people in the opposition to be known by public opinion. It doesn't matter whether it's Republicans and Democrats as in the United States, Labour and Conservatives as in Britain, the Social Democrats or the Christian Democrats as in Germany. It's the same merry-go-round that spins time and again with the same politicians, the same very mediocre people, and they are given cameras and microphones and press possibilities in the newspapers by the media. So it's a perverse triangle of the worst people in power, the worst people in the opposition, and the media feeding upon them permanently and only giving them the possibility of making their voice heard. Remember, the press is not the fourth power. Nowhere in the Constitution of America or any other countries does it say there's a fourth power, the executive, the legislative, and judiciary, and then there's a fourth power, a fourth estate. That's been invented. Media companies are just corporations who are bent on having a profit, and that profit depends on their defending the interests of their private shareholders, of their advertisers, of the money lobbies, and a very powerful interest group. So normally, this all tends to lead to an equation where the worst people ride on waves of money and the best people are shut up at home. Information and entertainment, the mainstream media call it. Mind poisoning, I call it. The litmus test, the press must align itself to the common good. And there's no better judge than you and me to know whether the press are really aligned to the common good. So our rallying call in Second Republic must be down with usurping minorities, down with states within a state, whether that minority be the military, as we suffered in Argentina various times in recent history, or the banksters and oil tycoons, as happens in the United States and in Britain, or decadent so-called nobilities, as in Europe and in certain Arab countries, or drug lords, as happens in Colombia and in Mexico, or private and public mafias, as happens in Argentina or Italy or Russia. So it's always illegitimate minorities taking too much power and imposing their will and discrimination against we the people who are the absolute majority. Even when they act legally, as the sorry spectacle of oil lobbies, mining lobbies, foreign country lobbies, Zionist lobbies show, legal yes, but legitimate no, and they always go against the common interest. If we want really true democracy, then let's play by the rules. And the number one rule of democracy is that no minority should wield too much power against the common good. I don't care if the name of that minority is oil, Wall Street profits, just wars against terrorism, banks, the press, Israel, a particular ideology, a particular person, a party, or a dynasty. If we're going to play by democracy, then let's make the global power elite do so in earnest and follow the rules. Until then, let's continue calling this system by its real name. Authoritarian dictatorship. That's what you have in America, that's what we have in Argentina, that's what you have in Europe, and that's what you have the world over. So friends, brothers, sisters, the world over, imperceptibly our countries have been stolen from under our own feet. Our sovereign states have been hijacked by very powerful, shrewd, well-organized, but tiny minorities who don't give a hoot about any one of us. Now it's up to you and me, to us, to take our countries back. This means wrenching the state from their grubby and greedy hands. There is no option. You either break the chains of slavery with your own hands and arms, or you sit around, loaf around in your living room, waiting for somebody to come around and set you free. That's called slavery. It's your call.